Bancha is Pinellia ternata. Bancha Toxicity, or Araceae family members, they all have the same type of toxicity, like taro root is a Araceae family member. So, and then in the medicine we have Aracema like tiannanxing. All of these, they have toxicity due to the presence of calcium oxalate crystals. And the calcium oxalate crystals, they actually form into these really neat little, anyway, we'll get to that in a minute, a cool little kind of a spear projecting device called a raphides. So what we know is through boiling of the tubers, it breaks down the crystals and yields an edible product. This is how these things have been used as food for all this time. Like taro is actually a food. And, so the toxic effect of the crystals in a small dose will, toxic effect of the crystals will induce burning in the mouth, or swelling, choking. A large dose will severe digestive upset. Essentially, you're just, all these little crystals are stabbing away at all your cells, causing cell death, being absorbed into the liver and into other fragile organs, also your eyes. So you possibly may have permanent liver and kidney damage if you take this stuff for too long, or you take it and it's unprocessed. There's been issues like with things like chai hutong formula with bupleurum in it, causing toxicity, causing hepatitis, and it's always getting thrown on bupleurum, but in that formula you also have Pinellia ternata. And if you look at those two things, it's like, what's more likely, bupleurum to cause a toxic reaction or Pinellia ternata to cause a toxic reaction? It might be good to actually look at the Pinellia ternata as a causative factor, and toxicity due to formulas which contain both bupleurum and Pinellia ternata. The toxic mechanism of Pinellia ternata, this is some research from China where they're looking at some relationship to this protein that's found in Pinellia ternata. Some people will say the toxicity is due to this Pinellia agglutinin protein. And then we also know that the raphides and the calcium oxalate crystals are present, and so they wanted to find out which was the actual mechanism, this protein or the calcium oxalate crystal. And so that was pretty much their finding, is that so they could induce the inflammation just with the calcium oxalate crystals, with the raphides. This was necessary. So the point of the processing is to destroy the raphides. So these are strange little cells that actually project these calcium oxalate crystals out. This is like a self-defense mechanism, pretty awesome. If you're using it to defend yourself, if you're eating it and then having to succumb to this, it's probably not so awesome to you. So the conclusion of this next survey was they found that after processing with 8% alum solution or sodium bicarb at a pH above 12, the calcium oxalate crystals were rusted and dissolved, needle points were broken, blah, 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 no more irritation or much less irritation. So primarily what we find in this research is that it looks like it's really important to process bancha with alum. So if we go back and we look through a historical survey of all the ancient literature that has, of all the processing methods that have been attempted at bancha over the last 2,000 years, this is what we find. Some different methods. So starting in the Han Dynasty, we have water and heat processing, hot water washing, the boiling method, baking over a slow fire roasting until scorched and swollen and then cracked. Each of these is from a different classical text, the Jade Envelope, Sun Simiao's Qianjin Yaofang, processing, and then moving on, processing with medicinals actually, and Legong Paozhilun. Legong is the thunder god, he's the kind of historical antecedent to all processing methods, most likely a mythological person. So he starts incorporating mustard seed and vinegar washing. And then also we have a fresh ginger soaking. So we're using heat at this point, we're using water. Some of this will cause degradation of the calcium oxalate crystals, but it's not actually what we see yet. And now there's more attempts. In the Song Dynasty, they add this processing using different types of food products like starch, bran, rice, and grain. I would say this is a development of trying to add medicinal features to the Pinellia ternata itself as we process it with these foods that have a kind of, that are homing to the middle jiao, to the stomach and spleen. This is going to accentuate Pinellia ternata's function of strengthening the spleen, transforming phlegm. Alkalizing agents. So moving to the alkalizing agents, start developing this idea that they know that they want to have a high pH, an alkaline pH, to help degrade the calcium oxalate crystals. So they're using vinegar, and then we see the emergence of the alum processing in between 900 and 1200 AD. And so they've already figured out essentially what they need to do to reduce the toxicity. And then again we have ginger. And this is, again, a kind of accentuation of the therapeutic principles of bancha. We know bancha can descend rebellious qi and stop vomiting, and so processing it with ginger helps accentuate that effect. And then finally we have something that looks very much like the modern method of zhang bancha, using ginger, alum, and zhaojiaci, which is the honey locust thorns. And so the honey locust thorn is going to help accentuate bancha's function of breaking up phlegm nodules, yin stagnant nodules. And then moving into the Ming Dynasty, we have other new methods, more heat processing, and then more processing with different medicinals, gansao and radish, ginger, xingren, also apricot seed descending the qi more. Wujuyu probably to help harmonize the middle jiao and some kind of strange liver and spleen disharmony function. And then more alkalizing agents with salt, with alum, and then combined with different medicinals. So in the Ming Dynasty, we have kind of the evolution of these alum and ginger processing methods and the combination with the medicinal treatments. Qing Dynasty, again, at the top, alkalizing, lake salt, vinegar, and then umami, a fun product, pig bile. Other medicinals, and then medicinals plus alkalizing agents. And in the end, we end up with today, where we have about 70 different ways to process Pinellia ternata. Processing's an art form. You know, depending upon the vessels that you have to work with, you can find the vessels in China, and they're massive industrial scale devices. You know, they're for processing hundreds of pounds simultaneously. And I try at home, I have 10 grams, and so I use like a teapot. And depending upon what you're working with, you're going to have something scalable to the size that you're working with on a yearly basis, or you have to have some kind of communal thing.